Hi everyone, it's me. It's a pretty gloomy day today, so I thought why not make a tier list video of my least favorite books. I did a video a couple weeks ago tier ranking my 5-star reads, so I decided to do the opposite today. I decided to pick the books that I have rated the lowest in the past few years and just to revisit them, tier rank them, see how I feel now, see if I've changed my mind maybe on some of them. So let's just get right to it. Let's make our tiers first. So our top tier is going to be reserved for books that I changed my mind about, or maybe for books that I didn't think were that bad in the first place. So top tier is going to be for books that are actually good. Second tier is going to be reserved for books that like maybe weren't good but weren't bad at the same time. So we're gonna call them not so bad. Third tier we're gonna reserve for books that I could see the appeal for other people who maybe have different book preferences than me, but like just for books that I absolutely did not enjoy, can see the appeal. Fourth tier is gonna be for books that were just maybe like boring and like almost DNF'd. Fun fact about me, if you don't already know, I have never actually DNF'd a book. Every book that I've started, even though I've hated it all the way through, I have kept reading, and that's just like a stubborn me thing. But yeah, I've never DNF'd a book. So this category is going to be for books that were like boring and maybe I like thought about DNFing a couple times. Yawn Fest should have been a DNF. And our last tier, we're just gonna call Jail. This is gonna be reserved for books that I don't see the point of them. And hopefully I don't use this tier because again, I always like to think of myself as someone who is like kind of nice. Hopefully, but I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how like critical I feel today. As I said, it's like a very cloudy, gloomy day outside, so maybe it'll like affect my mood and make me like grumpier than I normally am. Okay, so while my books are loading in, I just want to let you know how I decided to choose these books. I just looked at my Goodreads and I found all the books that I rated 3 stars or lower. I've been pretty generous with my star ratings, I feel like, in the past couple years. I'm trying to be like more harsh about it this year and more like realistic, but basically any book that I like fully enjoy and really love and would recommend, I rate 4 or 5 stars. For me, a 3-star book could go either way. Like it could be on the lower end of a 3-star book, which is maybe like a book I didn't really enjoy too much, or it could be like a 3.5 or something. I enjoyed the book, but maybe it just didn't stick with me. It didn't like fully resonate with me too much. So yeah, my 3-star books can be hit and miss, but I did include books I rated 3 stars in this list. Starting with Alone with You in the Ether by Olivie Blake. You guys know how I feel about Olivie Blake at this point. I just find so much like promise in her writing. I get so excited about the premise, the concepts of her books, and I just really always want to enjoy her books. And I do like her writing as well. I feel like her writing's very moody, very vibey. She's definitely a vibes writer. I feel like her storytelling is where we fall short, at least in my opinion, with Olivie Blake. I tend to find myself really loving the first half of all her books, and then at the 50% mark, plot gets really messy, things don't really tie together the way I would want them to, but I'm always gonna keep trying Olivie Blake just because I don't know, I like her vibe, I like her ideas of stories, and I like her writing, but she hasn't really been able to like wrap it all together for me in the end. So you know what, this actually fits in the description, can see the appeal, not for me, because I can see the appeal. I loved the premise of this book, but in the end was not a book that I enjoyed. Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. I feel like I have just talked about this book so much on this channel at this point. I enjoyed Serpent and the Wings of Night enough to continue on to the sequel, so that's saying something, but this sequel was just not it for me. The pacing, like I don't even know what was going on with the story. I honestly don't remember what happened in this book. I feel like I just erased it from my mind, but I did not enjoy reading this book, and I don't think it deserves jail, but I think this should have been a DNF, honestly, because I found the story so boring. The 2 main characters that I liked their chemistry in the first book, they just weren't like acting like themselves. Found this entire book to be honestly boring. Glass Sword is next by Victoria Aveyard. It's kind of the same story as Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. I did enjoy Red Queen. Again, similar to Serpent and the Wings of Night, I enjoyed Red Queen enough to continue reading in the series, but Glass Sword was like a snore fest for me. And it's so sad to say because I did like Red Queen, I liked the world we were in, I liked the characters enough, like I was invested in their stories. And I think the idea, again, the overall story of Glass Sword could have been exciting, but the way it was written was just boring for some reason, and I can't put my finger on why, but I probably should have DNF'd this as well. Lunch in Paris by Elizabeth Bard. This one's is gonna be a little weird for me to tier rank because it is a non-fiction. It's an autobiography about the author who moved from America to Paris and like documented her experience with a lot of emphasis on culture and food. And this is another book I've talked about on my channel, but when I was reading this book, for some reason I thought it was fiction. I rated it pretty low because there was no plot. After reading it, I felt bad about it because I realized it was non-fiction, and that's why it didn't have a plot, because it was just someone's real life. I'm gonna say can see the appeal, not for me, just because I'm usually actually not really a non-fiction girly. I like my fiction. I like disappearing from the real world and immersing into these stories, and I think that's why I like fantasy so much. And so yeah, I don't know, I usually don't like memoirs or autobiographies, so yeah, I can see the appeal of it. There were some really good like food moments, and she even included like recipes you could like try and cook yourself. It just wasn't for me, or like at least not at the time. Next up, Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is a contemporary fiction romance I really wanted to like, and I liked the overall story, but for some reason the way it was written, it didn't really impact me the way I wanted it to. We kind of delve into some serious subject matter in this book that I feel like should have impacted me more. I don't know which category this fits into. I'm gonna put this into not so bad. I don't think it was a bad book. I feel like I just wanted to be affected by more. A Court of Frost and Starlight. I can't believe a Sarah J Maas book is on this list. But this is one of the books that I rated a 3-star. If you guys are familiar with the ACOTAR series at all, you guys know that this is like the short little novella that's kind of a Christmas special. Nothing really crazy or big happens in it. It's like a tiny little book. It's just kind of like hanging out, and it does set us up for the coming book in the ACOTAR series. I will say I did actually really enjoy reading this book. Was it as highly rated as the other ones for me? No, just because again, like nothing really happened in this book, but it served its purpose. Like it was a good little calm break between ACOWAR and ACOS. How do you say that? A Court of Silver Flames, ACOSF. ACOSF? I don't know. But yeah, this book was alright. It did its job. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, another really popular book. I did enjoy this book, or I enjoyed most of it. The reason why I gave this book a 3-star, I'm pretty sure, is because the ending was just so crazy to me, and not in a good way. Like it wasn't a good twist for me. It was just too much, to the point where it was not believable, and it took me out of the immersion of the story. But I'm gonna put this in actually good because I did enjoy the ride. I enjoyed the story all the way through, right up until the end there. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Oh, this book makes me so uncomfortable. Certain things that happen in this book, I think there's like one line in this book that became like viral. What was it? Something about talking about their kids' genital region, like a baby's, you know? I think for that, jail. All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers. A thriller that I honestly don't remember so much at this point. I honestly, like looking at this cover, I know I read this book and I remember reading this book, but I could not tell you what the main character's name is, what the general plot was, where it was set. I'm assuming like somewhere out in the countryside, maybe at a farm, because there's like a barn on the cover. Actually, I do remember one thing. I think this book was really predictable for me. Maybe this was a yawn fest, because with a thriller, like I want a good twist at the end. I want to feel that like jaw hits the floor, and like I didn't get that at all. Okay, another Olivie Blake, who I have talked about. One for My Enemy, though, is the Olivie Blake book that came the closest to me enjoying it, because I was fully loving this book in the first half. So I'm gonna put this in not so bad. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Immediately I'm gonna put this in Can See the Appeal, not for me. I think this book was well written. Like if you're one for prose and like sentence structure, very well written book. If you're into like the classics, like this is based on David Copperfield too, so like I feel like you would enjoy this. This book just convinced me that maybe lit fic is not for me, because I don't know, I feel like the past couple of lit fics I've read have just been very monotonous in their tone, and I'm someone who, like, when I'm reading, I like to like go on roller coasters with my emotions, and this book dealt with so much serious subject matter, things that should have been really sad and impactful, but I just didn't feel any emotion coming from the narrator in this book. I just don't think it was my style. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This book was fun, you know. I feel like this book though was also like so predictable. And I know that all romances are mostly very predictable. Like, you know, your two main characters are gonna end up together. It's a romance book, but the things they went through and the dialogue and the things they said to each other, it was like so clear from the beginning. They already liked each other. Like, they already loved each other. I think this was supposed to be somewhat of like a rivals to lovers or like enemies to lovers story, and it didn't enemy at all. It was just lovers immediately. So yawn fest for romance. Yeah. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Same feeling I had when I was reading All Good People Here. I liked the vibe of this book. I liked like the whole Paris apartment, the setting, all the neighbors. Like, I liked learning about their personalities, but I think the ending, it just didn't take me there. I'm gonna actually put this though in Can't See the Appeal, not for me, because I did really like the setting of this book. I just didn't like where it took us. Oh, this one's gonna be controversial. I have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen on this list. I'm not a classics girly. I don't know. I think I'm gonna try and read more classics again this year and just see if maybe I just haven't found the classic style that I like. I did not enjoy this book. It's known as, you know, like the classic of romances. It supposedly like created enemies to lovers. It was really frustrating for me reading this book because when we had scenes with like the entire family, they all have the same last name, right? They kept referring to people like as their last name, and I was like, okay, but which sister are you referring to? Because there are like 3 of them here. Maybe I'm just like not smart enough to like read between the lines and understand which sister is speaking and who's being addressed, but I didn't like it. And I also I didn't like Mr. Darcy. Like, didn't feel any like tug or pull towards him at all. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna put him in jail because like I can't put a classic in jail, but I honestly probably should have DNF'd this book. I struggled my way through the entire thing. Okay, The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I actually, you know what? I think I enjoyed this book more than I thought I was going to. Just the concept of it, like a girl falls in love with a ghost, essentially. And I was like, this is so silly. I don't know why I read this book. But I think I enjoyed this book more than I thought. I don't think it was that bad. It wasn't so bad. Was it great? Was it like one of my favorite romances? No, but I think it was fine. Like, for a nice, casual, light, funny read that you shouldn't take too seriously, I think it was fun. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I didn't hate this book. I rated it a 3-star, which again can go kind of both ways on the spectrum. I just feel like YA romance doesn't do it for me anymore, because like, as someone in my 30s now, reading about high school kids doesn't really get me. Like, I don't know, I feel weird reading them. So I'm gonna put this in Can See the Appeal, but not for me. Like, if you do like YA romances, I think this is one of the better ones. I thought the story was very endearing. I thought the 2 main characters were, you know, really sweetly written. I just don't think I'm a YA romance girly anymore. So yeah, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia Faeries. I'm gonna put this in actually good. This was definitely on the higher end of 3 stars. I enjoyed this book. It was very cozy to read, so the experience was very good. I think where this book lacked for me was the plot and like the pacing of the story. And I think reading this book made me realize maybe I'm not a cozy fantasy reader. Like, I'm more of a high stakes fantasy reader, but I did enjoy the experience of reading this book. I don't think I'm gonna continue on with the sequel, but yeah, I think this book was good. I liked it. I just didn't love it. We've got more Coho. It Ends With Us. This is the book that got me out of my like, what, 10-year reading slump. Even though now looking back, I've read much better books than this, I can't really say anything bad about this book, I don't think, because it is the book that got me excited to read again. Like, I enjoyed this book while I was reading it, and while like, even in the moment when I was reading this book, I cringed so much at the dialogue and like the intimate scenes, it still got me excited to continue reading. So I have to put this in not so bad. There were parts of it I didn't like, but there were parts of it I liked. So there we go. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Such a disappointment for me. I just hated everyone. Every single character in this book I despised, and not in a good way, because some authors can make me despise characters but still want to read about them. The Secret History made me despise the characters in a way that like I didn't want to spend a single more second with them. So I did what I always do when I should DNF a book. I powered through it, and I think I read like 300 pages a day until this book was done. Because that's the kind of person I am. So I'm gonna have to put this in Yawn Fest should have been a DNF because I really should have DNF'd this book. I had no fun reading this book whatsoever. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I have a full reading vlog experiencing this book. I'm gonna have to put this book in jail. Every time I think about the dialogue and the smut in this book, I just no, like, get it away from me. I don't want to think about it ever again. I felt so uncomfortable reading this book, and like, this book honestly could probably go into Can See the Appeal Not For Me because I know people like smut. This was just too far for me. Like, I'm getting like uncomfortable just like thinking about it. Same Time Next Summer by Annabelle Monaghan. This is another book I don't remember what this was about. I'm trying my best to like remember what this book is. What is this? This is the same author though that wrote Nora Goes Off Script, right? I really did enjoy Nora Goes Off Script, so I picked up this book. I think that's what happened. I read it as a palate cleanser between, was it ACOTAR and Throne of Glass? Yeah, between ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, I needed like a fresh little cute palate cleanser romance. This didn't even do it for me as a romance. I have to put this in Yawn Fest because I don't remember it. Ring by Andre Alexis. This is a book. It was kind of like a magical realism, and I think the concept of it was really cool, but there was this insta-lovey relationship that happened immediately in the first part of this book that just threw me off. Couldn't enjoy the rest of it. So, I don't know. Another Yawn Fest? Sure. Oh, this book. I read this a couple years ago. I think the concept of it was really cool and I wanted to enjoy this book, but the main character really annoyed me. I don't know what it was about her, but she really annoyed me. And the entire time reading this book, I just felt annoyed. I feel like this girl would be a bad roommate. But I'm gonna say not so bad, because overall I did enjoy the story. There were just like a few things that annoyed me. In the Weeds by BK Borison. This was another really boring romance for me. I feel like 80% of this list is romances that were just boring. This was like similar to The Hating Game, where it was just so like the two main characters didn't have conflict. Like the conflict was very made up between the two of them, and they should have just like gotten together at the beginning of the book and not had a story. So I'm gonna put this in Yawn Fest. Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan is another romance that is so widely loved out there, but I didn't. I liked the concept of this book. I liked the story, and this book did make me cry. So it did get me emotionally. The thing I didn't like about this book was the smut. As smut goes, I think the smut was written very well in this book, but there was so much of it. I enjoyed the first scene, and then after the first scene I was like, I don't want this anymore. Like, I'm sick of reading like the same smut scene over and over again, and it's just like too much. So I'm gonna put this in Can See the Appeal Not For Me. November 9th. I think I have to put this in the same category as Ugly Love because the whole premise of this book was very creepy and kind of stalkerish. Normal People by Sally Rooney. There are two types of people in this world, right? And I feel like everyone in like the book world knows about this, but you're either a normal people person or you're not a normal people person, and I am not a normal people person. The thing that bugged me the most about this book, to be completely honest with you, is the lack of quotation marks. Just that alone made the experience of reading this book so difficult for me. I couldn't just like relax and get into the story because I was just like hyper focused on the fact that there were no quotation marks around any of the dialogue, and so I didn't like it. But I watched the TV show, which I think was like pretty close to the plot of the book, and I actually really enjoyed the TV show. So I think the story was good. Like, it was a story that I would have enjoyed, but the lack of quotation marks just really did it for me. So Can See the Appeal Not For Me because I liked the story, but I just did not like the writing style. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I feel like I have so many like popular, trendy, viral romances on this list. I will say The Love Hypothesis was not thoroughly a bad experience for me. It was one of those books that like, if you just want to turn your brain off and enjoy something really light, The Love Hypothesis is a great book for that. So I'm gonna put this in not so bad. But I think what confused me the most about The Love Hypothesis is the amount of attention it was getting. Like, it just seemed to me like, you know, a good old 3-star casual read, but this book got a lot of love, and for me it wasn't anything special. The Coven by Harper L. Woods. This book is a paranormal dark romance, and I didn't know it was a dark romance until I started reading it. I don't know, maybe that's why I didn't like the book, because I don't know, maybe I'm just not a dark romance girly. I'm gonna put this in Can See the Appeal Not For Me, because maybe if you're a dark romance person, you would like this book. I did like the world we were in this book though. In this fantasy, we were in this like really cool world where we had witches and these things called vessels that like fed off the wishes, but I didn't like the main romance in it. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Okay, I'm gonna put this in actually good. I rated a 3-star or 3.5 star, and I think that is still valid. I didn't think this book was bad. I think it was a good book. I liked the banter between the two main characters, but for me, it was kind of like the same feeling I got from Love Hypothesis. Like, this book is getting so much hype on social media that I expected something that would blow my mind away. For me, it was just a regular, good old fantasy romance. There was nothing really new in it for me. Everything was something that I had seen happen before in a fantasy romance, and so it was very like copy paste. Here's your fantasy romance. Here are your enemies to lovers. There you go. And it was very tropey, but I don't think it was a bad book, and I'm excited to go on in the series, hoping that it kind of goes off on its own path and like makes its own way. So I don't think Powerless was bad, but I don't think it was as good as everyone around me is making it out to be. Regretting You by Coho. I think this book is one of Coho's better books. I don't remember too much about it because, again, I read it like, I don't know, maybe like 3 years ago, but I'm gonna put this in not so bad. I think this one was about like the older people, right? Like the mother. Yeah, there was the mother, and then she had like a daughter. Yeah, okay, yeah, this book was fine. Power of Dawn. Ooh, we have another Sarah J. Maas book in this list. I was harsh on this book. This book was actually good. It should have been rated higher. This book, if you don't know, is the book in the Throne of Glass series that probably gets the most like hate, just because it follows a character that like most people, including myself, are not the biggest fan of. So that kind of like taints your experience, like reading a book that's mostly about a character you don't like. I do acknowledge though that the story in this book was very good. Like the arc we took, character development, it was great. It was a good book. It was very well written. We got a lot of important information as well that we needed for the finale in this series. I rated a 3-star. It probably should have been a 4-star. So this book was actually good. Summer After Summer by Lauren Bailey. To me, this was just another clone of like all those books that are about like beach childhood best friends, or like, you know, like younger relationships that like have a second chance at a beach vacation home. You know what I mean? Like that template. I like the way this book was written was very boring. So I'm gonna put this in Yawn Fest. 2 more books. So we're gonna talk about The Kingdom of Sweets by Erika Johansen. This book is another one. It kind of gave me the Olivie Blake feeling, where I was really excited about the concept of this book. This is a dark nutcracker retelling, and I read it around Christmas and I was really excited, but it just fell flat for me. And similar to Olivie Blake, I liked the world that we were set in this book, and the first half of the book really got me immersed, pulled me in, until the second half of the book, where we reach the point of the plot where everything goes chaotic and messy, but not in a good way for me. So I have to put Kingdom of Sweets Can See the Appeal Not For Me. And then lastly, we have Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. This is actually the first book that precedes In the Weeds, which we already sorted into Yawn Fest. Lovelight Farms I actually liked a lot better than In the Weeds. I thought this book was fun. It was like a Christmas farm romance. Like, it takes place on a Christmas tree farm. So I'm gonna put this book actually in not so bad. This book was really cozy. It did the job of what it was supposed to do, and it definitely was a lot better than In the Weeds for me. And that is all the books. I forgot to put this disclaimer at the beginning of the video, but when I make videos like this, like more negative videos I guess, I don't mean to offend anyone. If there is a book that you really love that's on my like lowest rated list, it's nothing personal. I'm not saying you have bad taste or anything. I think like with books, it's just so fun that there's so many books out there that cater to us, that have different preferences and what we like in books. And so this is just my list of the books that maybe I didn't enjoy so much. But that being said, I'm gonna leave you guys here for now because we have finished our tier ranking. If you liked this video, please leave me a like and a comment. If you don't know what to comment down below, let me know what book you've read recently that you didn't like. The most recent book you've read that you've disliked. Let me know what that was. If you like me, subscribe, do that bell thing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!